And let me take you live to Mar-a-Lago. The president, he's just gotten a question on North Korea. Here he is.
Japan is the only major American ally that was not exempted from the steel tariffs. Did you ask the president to exempt Japan, and if so, how did he reply?
Thank you, Mark, very much. The fact is that they do have 3 prisoners. We have been talking about them. We're negotiating now. We are doing our very best. As you know, they've been there a long time, and it's harsh treatment. We fought very hard to get Otto Warmbier back, and when we came back, he was in very, very bad condition. It was a very sad event. We are likewise fighting very diligently to get the 3 American citizens back. I think there's a good chance of doing it. We're having very good dialogue. We will keep you informed, but we are in there, and we are working very hard on that. We have come a long way with North Korea. We were, as you know, and when I say we, for many years they've been talking to North Korea and nothing's happened. This should have been taken care of by past administrations when they were not nearly so far along. But we put unbelievably powerful sanctions on and many other things. I want to thank publicly President Xi of China, who has done more for us than he's done for any other administration or than any leader of China has done for any president or administration. He has clogged up the border, as you know, and he's done it very, very powerfully. He would tell you himself that he never thought he would go to this extent, and I appreciate that very much, but it's put a lot of pressure on. As you know, 93% of the goods coming into North Korea come in from China, and President Xi understands that this is a very important set of months that are lying ahead. He doesn't want to see a Korea, North Korea, or any Korea that has nuclear weapons either. So he's also fighting for China when it comes to this. But he has been terrific. Can he be better? I always say, yes, he can be better. I said, President, you've been great. Can you be better? Yes. But he's been very good, and it's had a big impact, and what we've done has had a big impact. So we've never been in a position like this with that regime, whether it's father, grandfather, or son, and I hope to have a very successful meeting. If we don't think it's going to be successful, Mark, we won't have it. We won't have it. If I think that it's a meeting that is not going to be fruitful, we're not going to go. If the meeting, when I'm there, is not fruitful, I will respectfully leave the meeting, and we'll continue what we're doing or whatever it is that we'll continue, but something will happen. So I like always remaining flexible, and will remain flexible here. I've gotten it to this point. President Moon of South Korea was very generous when he said if it weren't for Donald Trump, the Olympics would have been a total failure. It was my involvement and the involvement of our great country that made the Olympics a very successful Olympics. If you look at ticket sales prior to what took place with respect to North Korea, it was going to be a big problem, and it turned out to be a very successful Olympics. So we've gotten us here, and I think we're going to be successful. But if for any reason I feel we're not, we end. Okay? Thank you, Mark.
Between President Trump and myself.
And again, what you're looking at is this bilateral meeting with the Japanese and President Trump. The subject being the meeting, of which is a lot of details haven't been confirmed, from date, obviously, to location, to terms that would involve the North Koreans. But nonetheless, you should understand the high-stakes political theater going on here. You have a very unpopular Japanese president back home. You have the question of sanctions, but yet also the questions of sanctions not being imposed on the Russians right now. And the president's putting him out there. Now, if he delivers some meaningful peace deal with the North Koreans, he's absolutely right. He's accomplished something that past presidents haven't done. But as they say, between the lip and the cup, there's a long way to go here, and there's no guarantees that the meeting will even take place, and obviously that wouldn't be something the president, I should say, or his administration will look well if this thing falls apart, and as it has under prior administrations. But we also learned today that the CIA director and now State Department nominee has had already at least one meeting with the North Koreans. Let's go back to the presser. Again, this is President Trump.
Many nations, and in other cases, they're paying. And it's billions of dollars coming into the coffers of the United States. So they've been actually very important. If you look at what we did with solar panels, where we put 30% tariffs on, we had 32 companies opened with pretty new plants because it's a relatively new industry. Of the 32 plants, 30 were closed and 2 were not doing well. Since putting the tariffs on, the 2 are doing very well. 7 or 8 are going to be opening, and a lot more will open. Same thing with washing machines. We were, believe it or not, having washing machines dumped all over the country. We put tariffs on, and we're now opening up and expanding companies that create and make, which is actually a very big business, washing machines and dryers. So the workers of our country know what's happening. We have companies moving up from Mexico, automobile companies, and they're building new plants in Michigan and Ohio and Pennsylvania and Kentucky and expanding their plants. A lot of things are happening. Our country is doing very, very well. So, and it's going to continue. It's going to continue. A lot of great momentum. If you look at any chart, the enthusiasm for business in our country is at an all-time high. And unemployment for African-American workers, for Hispanic workers, unemployment is at an all-time low. In history, in the history of our country, it's at the lowest point. If you look at unemployment for women, it's at an 18-year low. So we're very proud of our achievements. And starting now, as you see, over the last few weeks, the tax cuts are kicking in. And it's a beautiful thing to see. And people are spending money where they didn't have the money to spend previously. So we're very happy with that. Shinzo, please.
ありがとうございます。NHK の原と申します。安倍総理大臣とトランプ大統領に北朝鮮の対応について。
I'd like to ask questions about how to handle North Korean issues. Prime Minister Abe, the coordination for holding a summit between the South Korea and North Korea, as well as between the U.S.
And again, we're going to be coming back to this. The president's going to be down in Mar-a-Lago for the next few days. Apparently, there'll be golf tomorrow, weather permitting. I'm not going to do the whole calendar, but this will be interesting for the balance of the president's time, how much he'll be able to stick on script, which is on the foreign affairs aspect, rather than the probe. And I want to bring the table back in for a second. Obviously, not being able, Mayo, to control a client is a nightmare for an attorney. But when you have one that refuses to go off get off of Twitter, and as we saw last night, he sent out a tweet that Stormy Daniels' claim on 60 Minutes that she, while holding her infant child, were threatened by a guy that if she kept or talked anything about the alleged affair, well, I'm sorry, we got to cut back to the president here. No. Okay, I'm sorry. You can never know when he's going to stay on script or he's going to bogart the guy's time. So anyway, what's the fear here? And does he have enough attorneys? Because it seems like, I know law firms are saying no, but especially with Cohen now in hot water, not that he was necessarily handling the case, what kind of legal team does he have to go up against Mueller and co?
From time to time, everybody gets a client that's a little more difficult to deal with, but most of the time they come to you because they value your judgment. And you may disagree about strategy, and it may take some time to come up with a common strategy. But it's the equivalent of you going to an oncologist and they suggest a regimen of treatment and you say, no, I'm going to do it my way. Well, if that's the case, then you don't need to be with that oncologist. And the other thing is that the more you speak, and even within his cabinet members and other people that surround him in the White House, each time they go out and speak, they provide another avenue for the investigation. So they end up having meetings with Mueller right afterwards, or they get a subpoena, or they end up pleading guilty right after that, and now they're a witness. So I think that he's a very impulsive individual, put it that way. He's used to being in control. He's a businessman. That's what lots of people thought we wanted.
You have managed to do the understatement of the day. To that end, Jason, last question for you, which is, I gotta figure he has helped Mueller out immensely in both how we can widen the scope of the probe here and then also being able to use statements. Even the interview he did with Lester Holt as to the rationale for why he fired Comey, you can't unwind that.
Without a doubt. The usual advice, as Mayo said, is to a client, shut up. Don't say a word.
Shut up or you're fired. I mean, really.
And there is nothing more difficult than a client who is uncontrollable. And going on Lester Holt and saying that Russia was the reason that he got rid of Jim Comey, the FBI director, is head-scratching, and it's a gift to the prosecution team because it is an admission directly from the president's mouth as to his
But when
motive.
you've prosecuted, you've done political corruption trials, etc., is there almost an argument that this is such a fire hose of information, you can almost go in too many directions?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, it requires discipline, it requires focus. There's no question about it.
I want to, this is probably the last question, and it has to do with the Mueller probe. Let's listen to what the president has to say.
Either Special Counsel Mueller or Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein. And Prime Minister Abe, did the president ask you to provide more funding for U.S. troops in Japan? And what agreement did you reach here in Florida on buying more military equipment from the U.S.?
Jennifer, I can say this, that there was no collusion, and that's been so found, as you know, by the House Intelligence Committee. There's no collusion. There was no collusion with Russia other than by the Democrats, or as I call them, the obstructionists, because they truly are obstructionists. So we are giving tremendous amounts of paper. This was really a hoax created largely by the Democrats as a way of softening the blow of a loss, which is a loss that, frankly, they shouldn't have had from the standpoint that it's very easy for them. They have a tremendous advantage in the Electoral College, and this is what it is, and this is where it came from. You look at the kind of money that was paid. Probably some went to Russia. You look at Podesta having a company in Russia where nothing happened and people don't talk about it. You look at the fact that their server, the DNC server, was never gotten by the FBI. Why did the FBI take it? The FBI takes what they want. They go in, they wouldn't get the server. This is a hoax. As far as the investigation, nobody has ever been more transparent than I have instructed our lawyers. Be totally transparent. I believe we've given them 1.4 million pages of documents, if you can believe this, and haven't used, that I know of, or for the most part, presidential powers or privilege. So we are hopefully coming to the end. It is a bad thing for our country, very, very bad thing for our country. But there has been no collusion. They won't find any collusion. It doesn't exist. As far as the two gentlemen you told me about, they've been saying, I'm going to get rid of them for the last 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, and they're still here. So we want to get the investigation over with, done with, put it behind us, and we have to get back to business with negotiating with this gentleman and plenty of others. But this gentleman is a very tough negotiator, and we have to focus on that. Thank you very much.
在日米軍経費についてなりますが、在日米軍が
I know the Japanese premier will talk about any military purchases, but with the limited time we have left, I don't know, Mayo, you said it. If they want to expedite this thing, sit down and talk with Mueller. There's an open invitation right now. And the idea that, you know, they are the most transparent group that's ever been, come on.
When you're that transparent and you're interested in being transparent, there's nothing else to see. You go in, you sit down, you talk to them, it's over. They don't need to subpoena you. No grand jury needs to be impaneled.
Do you believe that we just heard the president basically say he's not going to move on Mueller or Rosenstein?
I do. I do. And I think he
And
realizes,
that would be good counsel by anybody.
right.
I haven't heard one person say, with it's got any credibility, that would be a smart move, even if they're a Trump supporter, in that, you know, you're basically confirming all the suspicions here that you want this to go away.
by all accounts, it's not because that's his decision, and that's what he wants to do. But I certainly think that he realizes that it would be truly political suicide to make that kind of move right now.
Yeah.
I do, especially when he hears Republicans say, we will not support any legislation that clears a path for him to do any such thing.
He clearly painted that this is a partisan witch hunt, and it brings me back to some of my earlier questions, and he questioned the FBI's integrity as to what they did or didn't do. You think at the end of this, regardless what comes down, that there'll be a consensus on Capitol Hill? Let's just subtract the 5 wackos you'll find on either side or whatever. That there'll be a consensus to say, we believe this to be the truth, whether or not it reaches high crimes and misdemeanors or not, that people will say, because I haven't heard anybody question the credibility of Mueller for the most part in the U.S. Senate. If he delivers a report, and whether or not, however they choose to go at the end of the day, will it restore some of the questions, and will the voices be consistent that we looked at this fairly and impartially and this is what we came up with?
I think that what may happen is you'll see that as people decide that they're not going to continue to run, or that their integrity and their legacy actually outweighs their ability to be reelected, you may find that you'll have people on both sides of the aisle who are more willing, especially as more information comes out, to call it what it is, whatever that may be. And I think to Jim's point, look, if he's successful with Korea, he should receive credit for that. And I think that we've got to move away from the picking winners based on who you happen to be. On the other hand, if they find that there's evidence of criminal conduct, or if there's evidence of him lying, I think that at that point, once that's shown, it will be difficult for some people to move past it, but again, those are going to be people who aren't swayed no matter what. But I think that for the most part, you'll probably see more members of Congress come together.
This is my take. Up until now, the Republicans have realized that to go against him is not politically good for them. But for the most part, they have all come out and said that Mueller is a man of integrity, we trust him, and I think they're just waiting for the results. My sense is if that Mueller comes out with an evidence-based scathing report, that they may turn on him. Because none of them are saying it's a witch hunt and so on, the 5 wackos aside. But for the most part, they're all saying this is a man of integrity, we trust him, and I think that signals to me that they're saying, and we're going to trust what he comes up with.
And very few people say that about President Trump.
That's right.
Do you think Mueller at some point shows leg on this and shows a little bit, or leaks out a little as to what he has, so that when there is some impatience, we have the midterms this year, that he's going to basically give an idea as to the significance of what they have in the probe? And now that risks angering the president, that risks the president pulling the plug. You don't think
and he shouldn't.
No,
he shouldn't. I don't think Comey should have either. And I think at the end of the day, that Mueller's going to be professional. He's going to keep it close to the vest. But I think that what Jim said also is right on point. And I think there are a lot of Republicans who never believed that Donald Trump was a Republican from the beginning, and it'll give them an opportunity to distance themselves from him.
You mentioned Comey in the book, and I'm curious, Mayo, did he in any way impact this investigation?
Comey, well, by his book and his...
By his book and his various appearances. Since he's released his book and the media appearances he's done, I mean, he's made the point that he would have the preference that there not be an impeachment and that this be decided at the ballot box, conceivably in 2020. Now, obviously, that has no legal binding effect or whatsoever, but in any way, shape, or form, did he say anything where now it either impacts his credibility as a potential witness down the line?
Yeah, I think that he helped people to move closer into the corners that they already were leaning toward, and I don't think that his personal opinion is relevant whatsoever. I don't know why. I think it was irresponsible of him to have a tell-all book and for it to come out in the middle of this investigation.
At this time, I agree.
I was surprised by that. Because
listen, I agree. I agree. It's a bad look, and I've always had nothing but admiration for Mr. Comey, and he was the U.S. Attorney in the Southern District while I've been practicing there. But this is a bad look for him. He's a witness. As an FBI agent, as the director of the FBI, the one thing you tell your prospective witnesses, clam up. Don't start giving, dissertations. The very thing that we are talking about with respect to Mr. Trump and his inability to be quiet really is the same thing. He is a witness in a potential obstruction of justice charge against the President of the United States.
You know how, Jimmy, and
wait until
if it's former
over.
military person and they were going to write a book, I'm talking about a high-ranking officer, they have to clear it with the military, even if they're retired, before it comes out. Do you think, you know, the drafts of this were shown to Mueller beforehand to say, is anything in this going to impact investigation or release or give any information about the state of the investigation? Did he or should he have shown this to Mueller?
I don't think Mueller would have accepted it. I think he would have turned it away, and so I don't think that it was offered to him. But I happen to believe that Mueller and his team are not happy that he couldn't have waited until this investigation is over to write the book. The millions would have been there. I mean, they would have.
But Jim, you hit it. You're talking about the President of the United States. You're not talking
He's
about
a
a simple assault. If you had a witness in that, you wouldn't have him
He's
write a book before the case was done.
He's actually the only live witness when it comes to those conversations about letting Flynn go. And so he is the witness.
And from a non-legal perspective, from a political, when he is the sole witness into the room, and again, you're talking about the significance of saying, let it go with Flynn here, or, you know, wanting loyalty pledges and the rest, to then talk about, you know, the tanning goggles and the hairline and all the rest. I don't think he did himself any favors. In fact, he's already said he regretted maybe getting that detail. His rationale was, at least, he was trying to take the viewer along with him, or the reader along with him, to see what they saw. But I thought he was smarter than that. I didn't think he needed to go there.
It's a bad look for him.
We are in interesting times, my friends.
Surreal was the word you used, and it is apt.
Oh, from one day to the next. There was so much we didn't get to here tonight, but on Friday, well, a little programming note. Tomorrow night, we have a town hall for you at 6 o'clock here. In fact, if you are a subscriber, you can watch it at 7 p.m. in just a few minutes on the Long Island channel. But I did a town hall on the state of gun safety, school safety and security as it relates in the aftermath of Parkland. It was a fascinating conversation with all the stakeholders you can think of at a school in Long Island, at a high school, but it's apropos of any high school in this country. And also on Friday, I'm going to have for you a conversation related to the Alex Jones lawsuit from a father who lost his son and his counsel on that horrible day at Sandy Hook. But gentlemen, thank you all very much. That's all the time we have for tonight. I'll see you tomorrow.